The phone was still connected. I could hear everything. Every single word that came out of my husband Min-jun's mouth felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. "I never loved her," he said, his voice cold and dismissive. "Destiny was just convenient, a way to get my parents off my back about marriage. You know how they are about appearances." My hand trembled as I held my phone, frozen in my kitchen in Seoul, listening to the man I'd spent 5 years of my life with casually dissect our marriage like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I love connecting with you all. Now, let's get back to this story because trust me, you won't believe what happens next. I should have hung up. I should have confronted him immediately. But something kept me listening, some desperate need to hear the full truth, no matter how much it would hurt. The woman on the other end laughed, a high-pitched, familiar sound that made my blood run cold. "Well, she certainly played her part well," the woman said. "The devoted African wife, always smiling, always trying so hard to fit in. It was almost pathetic to watch." That voice, I knew that voice. It was Seo-yeon, my husband's colleague, the woman who'd been coming to our apartment for work meetings at least twice a week for the past 6 months. The woman I'd cooked for, welcomed into my home, trusted around my husband. "Seo-yeon knows me better than you ever could," Min-jun continued. "She understands Korean culture, our traditions. She doesn't have to try so hard to belong because she already does. With you, destiny, everything always felt like work. Explaining things, defending you to my family, watching you struggle with the language even after all these years." Tears streamed down my face, but I remained silent, my thumb hovering over the end call button yet unable to press it. "When are you going to tell her?" Seo-yeon asked. "We've been planning this for months, Min-jun. I want to start our life together. I want everyone to know we're together." "Soon," he replied. "I just need to figure out the cleanest way to do it. Maybe I'll wait until after the promotion. Having a scandal right now wouldn't look good for the company." A scandal? That's what I was to him. Not a heartbreak, not a painful decision, not the end of a marriage he'd once promised would last forever. Just a potential scandal to be managed. I finally ended the call, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. 5 years. 5 years since I'd met Min-jun at that international business conference in Lagos. 5 years since he'd swept me off my feet with his charm, his promises of a beautiful life together in Korea, his assurances that love conquered all cultural differences. My family had warned me. "Destiny, are you sure about this?" my mother had asked, worry etched across her face. "Moving so far away to a country where you don't know the language, where you might not be accepted." But I'd been so confident, so in love, so sure that Min-jun and I could overcome anything together. I'd learned Korean, adapted to the culture, endured the stares and whispers from strangers who weren't used to seeing a black woman in their neighborhoods. I dealt with his mother's thinly veiled disapproval, her constant comparisons to Korean daughters-in-law, her suggestions that perhaps I should try harder to fit the image of what a proper wife should be. And through it all, Min-jun had seemed supportive. He'd held my hand during difficult family dinners, translated when I struggled with complex conversations, assured me that I was doing wonderfully and that his love for me was unwavering. It had all been a lie. I looked around our apartment, this space I'd worked so hard to make into a home. The African artwork I'd carefully balanced with Korean traditional pieces, creating what I thought was a beautiful blend of our two cultures. The kitchen where I'd spent countless hours learning to make Korean dishes perfectly, determined to win over his family. The bedroom where I'd believed we were building a future together. All of it a lie. My phone buzzed, a text from Min-jun. "Working late tonight again, don't wait up, love you." Love you, 2 words that now felt like poison. But as I sat there in the suffocating silence of our apartment, something shifted inside me. The crushing pain began to harden into something else, something sharper, more focused. If Min-jun thought I was just going to quietly disappear, make things easy for him and his precious Seo-yeon, he had severely underestimated who he'd married. He'd forgotten that I wasn't just some convenient prop in his life story. I was Destiny Okonkwo, a woman who'd left everything she knew to build a life in a foreign country. A woman strong enough to face every challenge Korea had thrown at her. And I was about to remind him of exactly who I was. I opened my laptop and began to research. First, I needed to understand Korean marriage and divorce laws. Then, I needed to document everything. I went to our shared phone account online and downloaded the complete call history. Min Jun's carelessness in not ending the call had given me the gift of truth, but I needed more than that. I accessed our banking records. We had a joint account, but I discovered Min Jun had opened a separate account 3 months ago, one he'd never mentioned. Regular transfers had been going into it, building up a substantial sum. He was preparing to leave me, financially cushioning his exit while I remained oblivious. My email pinged. A message from my best friend back home in Lagos, Amara, who'd been checking in on me regularly since I'd moved. Destiny, haven't heard from you in a week. Everything okay? You usually respond faster. Missing you, girl. Call me when you can. I wanted to call her, to pour out everything I'd just discovered, but something stopped me. If I told anyone right now, my emotions might override my strategy, and I was beginning to formulate a strategy. Instead, I replied, "Hey, Amara, all good, just been super busy. We'll call you this weekend. Miss you too." I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out my next move without the cloud of emotions making me act rashly. Over the next few hours, I went through everything methodically. I copied important documents to a secure cloud drive. I took photos of valuables in our apartment, creating a detailed inventory. I checked my visa status and researched my rights as a foreign spouse in Korea. What I discovered both surprised and empowered me. Korean law, while complex, did have protections for spouses, especially in cases of infidelity. And if I could prove Min Jun's affair with Seo-yeon, I had grounds not just for divorce but for compensation. But more than the legal aspect, I began to see the bigger picture. Min Jun worked for a prestigious Korean company, one that valued its public image immensely. Seo-yeon worked in the same company, in the same department. Their affair, if exposed, wouldn't just be a personal scandal. It would be a professional disaster. The front door opened at nearly midnight. Min Jun walked in, loosening his tie, looking tired but not guilty. He smiled when he saw me still awake. "Hey, I thought you'd be asleep," he said, walking over to kiss my forehead. I let him. I even smiled back. "Couldn't sleep," I replied calmly. "How was work?" "Exhausting," he sighed, sitting down beside me. "The project Seo-yeon and I are working on is consuming all our time. Speaking of which, she might need to come over this weekend to finalize some presentations." The audacity was stunning. He was planning to bring his mistress into our home while lying to my face about it. "Of course," I said sweetly. "I'll make sure to prepare something nice for lunch." He looked at me with what might have been affection, or perhaps just relief that I was being so compliant. "You're the best, Destiny. I don't tell you that enough." As he headed to shower, I sat there, my mask of calm firmly in place, my mind racing with possibilities. The game had begun, and Min Jun had no idea he'd already lost. The next morning, I woke up before Min Jun, as I always did. I prepared his favorite breakfast, Korean style, rice, miyeokguk seaweed soup, grilled fish, and banchan side dishes. I watched him eat, complimenting my cooking as he always did, scrolling through his phone with his other hand. "This is delicious," he said, not looking up. "You've really perfected Korean cooking." "I had a good reason to learn," I replied, my voice sweet. "I wanted to be the perfect wife for you." He glanced up briefly, smiled, then returned to his phone. I wondered if he was texting Seo-yeon, making plans, laughing at how oblivious I was. After he left for work, I made a call to a lawyer. Attorney Kim Jae-woo came highly recommended from a discreet online forum for expats navigating difficult divorces in Korea. Her office was in Gangnam, modern and professional. She was a woman in her late 40s, sharp-eyed and direct. "Mrs. Park," she said, using Min Jun's surname that I'd taken. "Tell me everything." I did. I played her the recording I'd made of that phone conversation. Yes, I'd recorded it on another device, just to be safe. I showed her the financial records, the evidence of the secret account, the pattern of work meetings that corresponded with hotel charges on credit card statements I'd dug up. Attorney Kim listened without interruption, her expression growing more focused with each piece of evidence. "You have a strong case," she said finally. "Very strong. In Korea, adultery is no longer a criminal offense, but it is still grounds for divorce and compensation. With this evidence, you could sue both your husband and his mistress for damages." "How much are we talking about?" I asked. "Given your husband's income, the duration of your marriage, and the clear evidence of infidelity, potentially 50 to 80 million won. Maybe more if we can prove emotional distress and damage to your reputation." That was roughly 40 to 60,000 US dollars. Not life-changing money, but enough to make a statement, enough to make them hurt. "But," Attorney Kim continued, "I sense you want more than just money." She was perceptive. I liked her already. "I want them to face consequences beyond just financial," I admitted. "Min-jun works for Hansung Electronics. It's a conservative company that prides itself on traditional values. An affair between colleagues, especially one that broke up a marriage, wouldn't look good for them." Attorney Kim leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You want to destroy their careers." "I want justice," I corrected. "I want them to understand that actions have consequences." "Then we need to be strategic," she said. "Timing is everything. If we move too quickly, they might be able to contain the damage. We need to wait for the right moment, gather more evidence, and strike when it will have maximum impact." Over the next 2 weeks, I transformed into someone I barely recognized. By day, I was the same Destiny, dutiful wife, always smiling, always accommodating. But underneath, I was documenting everything. I installed a small camera in our living room, hidden in a decorative piece. When Seoyeon came over for their work meetings, I captured everything. The way they sat too close, the lingering touches, the kiss I recorded when they thought I was out shopping but I'd deliberately come back early, entering quietly and leaving before they noticed. I joined a gym that I knew Seoyeon attended, not to confront her, but to observe. I watched how she interacted with other colleagues from Hansung Electronics. I learned that she was ambitious, calculating, and had a reputation for using relationships to climb the corporate ladder. Min-jun wasn't her first married man. This information was gold. I also reached out to my own network, something I'd been neglecting. I'd worked in international marketing before moving to Korea, and I still had connections. I started rebuilding those bridges, quietly exploring job opportunities back in Nigeria or in other countries. I wasn't going to stay in Korea after this, but I wasn't going to leave empty-handed or broken either. One evening, Min-jun's mother called. She wanted us to come for dinner that weekend. These dinners were usually ordeals, thinly veiled criticism of everything from my cooking to my appearance to my inability to give them grandchildren yet. "Of course, Omyeonim," I said respectfully. "We'll be there." After I hung up, Min-jun looked uncomfortable. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. I know my mother can be difficult." "She's your mother," I replied. "Family is important." He seemed relieved, probably because dealing with his guilty conscience about our sham marriage was easier when I played along. But I had plans for that dinner. Saturday arrived, and we drove to his parents' home in an affluent neighborhood in northern Seoul. The house was traditional, beautiful, and cold, much like my mother-in-law. "Destiny," she greeted me with a tight smile. "You're looking well." That was about as warm as she ever got. Dinner was the usual affair. His father discussed business and politics. His mother asked pointed questions about when I would give them grandchildren, why I wasn't more involved in church activities, whether I'd considered improving my appearance with procedures that were popular among Korean women. I endured it all with grace, as I always had. But then Min-jun's mother said something that changed the temperature of the room. "Actually, Min-jun, we wanted to talk to you both about something important." She glanced at her husband, who nodded. We've been thinking about your future, and we believe it might be time to reconsider some decisions. Minjun tensed beside me. Mother, what are you talking about? Your marriage, she said bluntly, looking at me without warmth. We know you tried, we know destiny tried, but perhaps it's clear that this match wasn't suitable. Different cultures, different expectations, these things matter. My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. We've spoken to a lawyer, his father added. If you wanted to pursue a divorce, we would support you. We would ensure destiny is taken care of financially, of course. We're not cruel people. Minjun's face went through several expressions: shock, panic, calculation. I don't know what to say. Say yes, his mother pressed. You've sacrificed enough trying to make this work. You deserve happiness with someone more appropriate. I watched Minjun carefully. This was it. This was the moment he could defend me, defend our marriage, prove that maybe some small part of what we'd had was real. He started, and I could see the wheels turning. His parents were giving him permission. They were giving him an easy out. He was going to take it. I think we should discuss this privately, he finally said, looking at me. This isn't something to decide at dinner. Coward, he couldn't even be honest in front of his parents. Of course, I said, my voice steady. This is quite unexpected. His mother looked almost triumphant. We only want what's best for you, Minjun, for your future. The rest of the dinner was awkward. We left early, the car ride home silent and tense. When we got back to the apartment, Minjun finally spoke. Destiny, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what they were thinking, bringing that up so suddenly. Were they wrong? I asked quietly. He looked startled. What? Are they wrong? Have you been happy? Have I been what you wanted? I kept my voice soft, vulnerable, playing my part perfectly. Of course. I mean, things haven't been perfect, but... But what, Minjun? Be honest with me. This was a test. I wanted to see if, even now, he would tell me the truth. If somewhere inside the man I'd married, there was still a shred of honor. He sat down, running his hands through his hair. I don't know, Destiny. Sometimes I feel like we're from such different worlds. Like no matter how hard we try, there's always going to be this gap between us. And is there someone who could bridge that gap better? I asked, watching his face carefully. His eyes widened slightly. What? No, that's not. Why would you ask that? Just a feeling, I said. Sometimes you seem distant, like your mind is somewhere else, with someone else. You're being paranoid, he said, too quickly, too defensively. I nodded slowly. Maybe I am, or maybe your parents are right. Maybe it's time we both admitted this isn't working. He looked at me, and I could see the relief in his eyes. He thought I was making this easy for him. Let's think about it, he said finally. We don't need to make any decisions tonight. Of course, I agreed. That night, I lay awake while Minjun slept beside me, probably dreaming of his future with Seoyeon. He thought the path was clearing for him. He thought his parents had given him the perfect excuse, and now I was going to cooperate. He had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I met with attorney Kim again. They're planning to divorce me, I told her. His parents practically demanded it at dinner. They want to paint it as a mutual decision, a cultural incompatibility. Let them think that, attorney Kim said with a slight smile. Let them believe you're going to go quietly. Meanwhile, we prepare. How long? I asked. Minjun's company has their annual shareholders meeting in 3 weeks. The board will be present, major investors, media coverage. If we're going to expose the affair, that's when we do it. Maximum visibility, maximum impact. Won't that seem cruel, deliberately choosing such a public moment? Attorney Kim's expression hardened. Mrs. Park, they've been cruel to you for months. They've made a fool of you, lied to you, planned your disposal like you were nothing. Cruelty is what they deserve. She was right. I'd been thinking too small, too kind. This wasn't about being the bigger person anymore. This was about making sure they never forgot what it cost to betray Destiny Okonkwo. 3 weeks, I agreed. We strike in 3 weeks. As I left her office, my phone rang. It was Amara, my best friend from Nigeria. Destiny, finally, I've been trying to reach you. Girl, what's going on? Your sister said she hasn't heard from you much either. I got into my car before answering. Amara, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to say anything to anyone yet. You're scaring me. What's wrong? And for the first time since I'd overheard that devastating phone call, I let myself break down. I told her everything. The affair, the betrayal, Minjun's plans, his parents' dinner ultimatum. Amara listened, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. That bastard, she finally said, her voice shaking with rage. That absolute bastard. Destiny, come home, leave him. Come back to Nigeria where people love you. I will, I promised, but not yet, not until I'm done. Done with what? I smiled, though tears were still streaming down my face, making sure he regrets the day he ever lied to me. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in deception. I played the role of the compliant, understanding wife so perfectly that even I was impressed with my performance. Minjun seemed lighter, happier, probably because he thought the end was in sight and I was making it easy for him. He had no idea I was building a case that would destroy everything he and Seoyeon had planned. Attorney Kim had me document everything. Every late-night work session, every suspicious charge on the credit cards, every text message I could access. Minjun had gotten careless, probably assuming I was too trusting or too naive to check. His phone was often left unlocked, and I used those opportunities wisely. The messages between him and Seoyeon were damning. They discussed apartment hunting for after the divorce. They talked about trips they'd take together. They even had a timeline. Minjun would tell me he wanted a divorce right after the shareholders' meeting, once his promotion was secured. They'd wait a few months for appearances, then go public with their relationship. Everything was planned, except for one variable they hadn't accounted for: me. I also did something else. I reached out to someone I never thought I would contact, Minjun's ex-girlfriend from before he met me. Her name was Park Hae-jin, and according to social media, she was now married with 2 children. I sent her a carefully worded message through Instagram. Hello, I know this is unusual, but I'm Minjun's wife, Destiny. I was hoping we could talk about something important. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? She responded within hours. I know who you are. Yes, we should talk, tomorrow. We met at a quiet cafe in Itaewon, an international district where a black woman and a Korean woman having coffee together wouldn't draw attention. Hae-jin was beautiful, poised, and when she sat down across from me, her expression was sympathetic. You've discovered something, haven't you? She said immediately. I blinked in surprise. How did you? Because I know Minjun, she said quietly, and I recognized the look in your eyes. I had the same look 6 years ago when I found out he was cheating on me. My breath caught. He cheated on you too. She nodded, stirring her coffee slowly. With a colleague from his previous company, he was so careful, so convincing. I only found out because the woman's husband confronted me, thinking I knew. When I confronted Minjun, he cried, begged for forgiveness, promised it was a mistake. His parents convinced me to give him another chance, said he was young and stupid. But you didn't stay with him, I observed. No, because 2 months later I found out it hadn't stopped. He'd just gotten better at hiding it. So I left, and his parents were furious with me. They blamed me for not being forgiving enough, for not trying harder. She looked at me directly. Then a year later, I heard he'd met an African woman at a conference and was getting married. I felt sorry for you. Why didn't you warn me? I asked, though without accusation. I was genuinely curious. Would you have believed me? A bitter ex-girlfriend trying to ruin his new relationship. She shook her head. Besides, I didn't know you. I didn't know how to reach you. And part of me hoped that maybe you would be different, that maybe he had actually changed. He hasn't, I said flatly. I know. Who is it this time? A colleague named Seoyeon. They've been planning my exit from his life like I'm a business problem to solve. Hae-jin's jaw tightened. Seoyeon from Hansung Electronics, works in international partnerships. Yes, you know her. I know of her. She has a reputation. This isn't her first affair with a married colleague. Hae-jin leaned forward. Destiny, why did you want to meet with me? Because I'm not just leaving quietly. I'm making sure they face consequences. And I wanted to know if you'd be willing to provide a statement about Min-jun's history of infidelity. It would strengthen my case significantly. A slow smile spread across Hae-jin's face. I would be delighted to. I've been happily married for 3 years now, and my husband knows everything about my past. Min-jun's parents tried to ruin my reputation after I left him, spreading rumors that I was unstable and vindictive. I'd love the opportunity to set the record straight. We exchanged information, and as we were about to part, Hae-jin took my hand. Destiny, make him pay. Not just for you, but for every woman he's manipulated and discarded. Men like Min-jun only change when there are real consequences. I squeezed her hand back. I promise you, there will be consequences. The shareholders' meeting was now 1 week away. Attorney Kim had filed the divorce papers, but we hadn't served them yet. The timing had to be perfect. Meanwhile, at home, Min-jun was practically giddy. His promotion had been confirmed. He was being made Director of International Development, a significant advancement. Seo-yeon had also received a promotion to Senior Partnership Manager. They were celebrating, thinking their plan had worked perfectly. Destiny, Min-jun said one evening, sitting me down in our living room. I need to talk to you about something. Here it comes, I thought, the divorce conversation. I've been doing a lot of thinking since my parents brought up that topic at dinner, he began, looking appropriately serious. And I think they might have been right, not because I don't care about you, but because we both deserve to be truly happy. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral and sad. I've been thinking the same thing. He looked relieved. Really? So you agree that maybe we should consider separating? I think, I said carefully, that we should both be honest about what we really want. And if we're not making each other happy anymore, then yes, maybe it's time. I'm so glad you understand, he said, actually reaching out to hold my hand. The audacity was astounding. We can do this amicably. I'll make sure you're taken care of. You can stay in Korea if you want, or if you want to go back to Nigeria, I'll support that too. That's generous of you, I said, managing not to choke on the irony. We can tell people it was mutual, that we realized we wanted different things. No one needs to know the details. We can both move on with dignity. Dignity. He was lecturing me about dignity while planning to move his mistress into what was currently still our home. When should we tell people? I asked. Let's wait until after the shareholders' meeting. I don't want any distractions from work right now. Then we can make the announcement quietly, start the legal process. That sounds reasonable, I agreed. That night, I could hear him texting someone, probably Seo-yeon, probably telling her that everything was going according to plan. He fell asleep quickly, peaceful and content. I lay awake, counting down the days. 5 days before the shareholders' meeting, I received an unexpected call. It was from a woman named Jennifer, an American expat who'd been married to a Korean man and gone through a similar situation. Attorney Kim gave me your number, she said. She thought we should talk. I heard what you're planning and I wanted to offer some advice. I'm listening, I said. When you go public with this, you're going to face backlash. Korean society can be harsh on foreign women who challenge Korean men, especially if those men come from respected families. You need to be prepared for that. I'm prepared, I assured her. Are you? Because they're going to paint you as the angry foreign wife who couldn't adapt. They're going to say you're being vengeful, that you're trying to ruin a good man's career over a private matter. His family will close ranks. His company will try to protect him. Let them try, I said firmly. I have evidence, I have documentation, I have witnesses. Evidence doesn't always matter when you're fighting against institutional bias, Jennifer warned. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm trying to prepare you. When I went through my divorce, even with proof of my ex-husband's affair, I was still treated like the villain by his family and many of his colleagues. So what do you suggest? Go public but control the narrative. Don't just present the evidence legally. Tell your story. Social media, expat communities, international press. Make it impossible for them to contain the story or spin it their way. It was brilliant advice. Attorney Kim had been focused on the legal battle, but Jennifer was right. This needed to be a public relations battle, too. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I created a detailed timeline of events. I compiled screenshots, call records, photos, everything in a clear, undeniable format. I wrote my statement, careful to be factual rather than emotional, letting the evidence speak for itself. I also reached out to a journalist friend from my previous life in international marketing. Sarah Chen worked for an Asian news network that covered business and social issues. When I told her my story and showed her the evidence, she was immediately interested. "This is bigger than just a cheating scandal," she said. "This touches on issues of workplace ethics, treatment of foreign spouses in Korea, corporate accountability. If you're willing to go on record, I can run this story." After the shareholders' meeting, I told her, that's when everything goes public. 2 days before the meeting, Si-Ho-yeon came to our apartment again. Min-jun had told me they needed to prep for a presentation. I told him I'd be out visiting a friend. Instead, I sat in my car down the street, watching the building entrance on my phone through the camera I'd installed at our door. 30 minutes after I'd supposedly left, I returned. I could hear them in the living room as I quietly entered. They weren't working. They were celebrating, drinking wine, talking about their future. "Just 2 more days," Si-Ho-yeon was saying. "Then the meeting, then you tell her, then we can finally be together openly." "I can't wait," Min-jun replied. "I'm tired of pretending. I want everyone to know we're together." "What about your parents?" "They'll come around, especially once they realize how much more suitable you are. Korean, from a good family, understands our culture, everything they wanted." I stood in the hallway, recording every word on my phone, my heart cold and calm. Then I walked into the living room. They sprang apart like teenagers caught making out. Wine glasses were quickly set down. Si-Ho-yeon's face went pale. Min-jun looked panicked. "Destiny, I thought you were." "Out," I finished calmly. "I was, but I forgot my phone charger." The lie was obvious, but I didn't care. I wanted them to know I'd heard. I wanted them to sweat. "Si-Ho-yeon, you should probably go," I said, my voice pleasant. "It's getting late, and I'm sure you have a lot to prepare for the shareholders' meeting." She grabbed her bag quickly, mumbling apologies, avoiding eye contact. Min-jun walked her to the door, and I could hear him whispering reassurances. When he came back, he looked nervous. "Destiny, that wasn't..." "Wasn't what?" I asked innocently. "2 colleagues having a glass of wine while working on a presentation. I'm sure that's exactly what it was." He studied my face, trying to gauge what I knew, what I'd heard. "We're just friends," he said finally. "Of course," I replied. "Just friends, like you and I are just husband and wife." The sarcasm was subtle enough that he could pretend not to catch it, and he did, nodding eagerly. "Exactly. Look, I know things have been tense between us, but..." "Min-jun," I interrupted gently. "We don't need to do this tonight. You have a big day coming up. The shareholders' meeting, your promotion presentation. You should rest." He looked relieved again. "You're right. Thank you for understanding." Understanding. If only he knew what I truly understood. Tomorrow was the day. Tomorrow, everything would come crashing down around them. And I would be there to watch. The morning of the shareholders' meeting, I woke up with absolute clarity. Min-jun was already awake, getting dressed in his best suit, checking his appearance multiple times in the mirror. He was nervous but excited. This was his big day, the culmination of his career ambitions. "Do I look okay?" he asked me, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. "You look perfect," I said, and I meant it. He should look his best for what was about to happen. "I wish you could be there," he said, though his tone suggested he was just being polite. "But it's boring corporate stuff. You'd hate it." "I'm sure I would," I agreed, though Attorney Kim, and I would be watching via live stream. Hansung Electronics always streamed their major shareholders' meetings for transparency. He kissed my forehead absently and left. I watched from the window as his car pulled away, then I got dressed carefully. Professional, put together, strong. I chose a navy blue dress that straddled both Korean and Western professional styles. I wanted to look like someone who'd tried to bridge both worlds, someone who'd made every effort. Attorney Kim called at 9 a.m. Everything is ready. Are you sure you want to do this? I've never been more sure of anything, I replied. The shareholders' meeting began at 10. For the first hour, it was standard corporate business, financial reports, strategy presentations, discussions about market expansion. Min-jun presented his international development plans brilliantly. He was articulate, confident, impressive. The board members nodded approvingly. Seo-yeon presented next, discussing partnership opportunities. She was equally polished, equally professional. They looked like the perfect corporate power couple, already aligned and synchronized. At 11:30, during the Q&A session, Attorney Kim executed phase 1 of our plan. She stood up in the audience. She'd registered as a proxy shareholder to gain entry and asked to address the board. I represent Mrs. Destiny Okonkwo Park, wife of Director Min-jun Park. I have urgent information regarding ethical violations that the board should be aware of before finalizing today's promotions. The room went silent. Min-jun's face drained of color. Seo-yeon looked like she might faint. The chairman looked annoyed. This is highly irregular. If there are concerns, they should be submitted through proper channels. This concerns the integrity of your newly promoted directors and involves matters of corporate ethics. Attorney Kim interrupted firmly. I believe shareholders have a right to know before making final approval votes. The murmuring in the room grew louder. The chairman consulted with other board members, then nodded reluctantly. You have 5 minutes. Attorney Kim connected her laptop to the presentation system. I'll need less than that. What appeared on the screen was a carefully edited compilation. The hidden camera footage of Min-jun and Seo-yeon in our apartment, kissing, embracing, discussing their affair and their plans. The text message screenshots, with dates and timestamps, showing months of coordinated deception. Financial records showing the secret account Min-jun had been building. But the most damning piece was the audio. The phone conversation I'd overheard that started everything, now played for the entire room to hear. I never loved her. Destiny was just convenient. She doesn't have to try so hard to fit in because she already does. With you, Destiny, everything felt like work. The room was absolutely silent, except for those devastating words echoing through the speakers. Then Attorney Kim displayed the employment contracts both Min-jun and Seo-yeon had signed, highlighting the morality clauses that explicitly prohibited romantic relationships that could create conflicts of interest or damage the company's reputation. This affair has been ongoing for 8 months, Attorney Kim stated calmly. It began while both parties were married, Director Park to my client, and Ms. Seo-yeon was involved with another colleague at the time. They have used company resources, company time, and company facilities to conduct this relationship while deceiving their spouses and their employer. Min-jun stood up, his face red. This is a private matter. You have no right. You made it a corporate matter when you violated your employment contract. Attorney Kim cut him off. My client will be filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. She will also be pursuing civil suits against both you and Ms. Seo-yeon for emotional damages. But more importantly, your shareholders deserve to know that the people you just promoted have demonstrated poor judgment, ethical violations, and a willingness to deceive those closest to them. The chairman was furious, but not at Attorney Kim. His glare was fixed on Min-jun and Seo-yeon. Is this true, Director Park? Min-jun opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Seo-yeon had started crying. We'll need to adjourn for an emergency board meeting, the chairman announced. This meeting is suspended. As the room erupted in chaos, cameras flashing, journalists rushing forward, Attorney Kim calmly packed up her materials and called me. It's done. The footage is already going viral online. Sarah Chen's news network just went live with the story. I watched the live stream from our apartment, seeing Minjun's world collapse in real time. Security was escorting him and Seo-yeon out of the building while reporters shouted questions. His face was a mask of shock and humiliation. My phone started ringing. Minjun, I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Then text messages started flooding in. Destiny, please, we need to talk. This is insane. You've destroyed everything. How could you do this, after everything I've done for you? That last message made me laugh bitterly. After everything he'd done for me, the audacity was almost impressive. His mother called next. I answered. You vindictive woman, she screamed. How dare you humiliate our family like this? My son gave you everything, and this is how you repay him. Your son, I said calmly, committed adultery, violated his employment contract, and planned to dispose of me like I was nothing. I simply made sure there were consequences. You've ruined his career. You've destroyed his reputation. We will sue you for defamation. With what evidence? I interrupted. Everything I presented is true and documented. You're welcome to try suing me, but I think you'll find that Korean courts don't look kindly on adulterers who cry victim when exposed. She sputtered with rage, then hung up on me. Over the next few hours, the story exploded across Korean social media and news outlets. It had everything: corporate scandal, betrayal, a wronged foreign wife fighting back. Public opinion was split, as Jennifer had warned it would be. Some people praised me for standing up for myself. Others criticized me for airing private matters publicly. But the evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the messages, the timeline, it all painted a clear picture that even the most biased observer couldn't completely dismiss. By evening, Hansung Electronics released a statement. Following serious ethical violations, we have suspended Director Park Min-jun and Senior Manager Kim Seo-yeon, pending a full investigation. We take corporate integrity seriously and will not tolerate behavior that violates our company values. Suspension, not firing, but it was a start. Attorney Kim assured me that the investigation would lead to termination. The evidence was too strong, and the public pressure too intense for any other outcome. Sarah Chen's news piece aired that night. She'd interviewed me earlier in the week, and now my story was being told in full. Not just the affair, but my experience as a foreign bride in Korea, the challenges I'd faced, the efforts I'd made to adapt, and how I'd been betrayed despite giving everything to my marriage. I didn't do this out of revenge, I said in the interview, looking directly at the camera. I did this because actions must have consequences. Marriage is a sacred commitment, and when someone violates that commitment while pretending everything is fine, while planning your disposal behind your back, they need to be held accountable. Not just legally, but publicly, because the next woman deserves to know who she's dealing with. The interview ended with me saying something that would be quoted across social media for weeks. I am Destiny Okonkwo. I left everything I knew to build a life with someone who promised to love me. When that promise was broken, I didn't break. I fought back, and I won't apologize for that. At 9 p.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. For a moment, I worried it might be Min-jun or his family coming to confront me. But when I checked the security camera, I saw it was Hae-jin, Min-jun's ex-girlfriend. I opened the door, surprised. Hae-jin, what are you doing here? She smiled and held up a bottle of wine. I saw the news. I figured you could use a friend and maybe a celebration. You did what I wish I'd had the courage to do. I let her in, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt myself genuinely smile. We sat in the living room that Min-jun and I had shared, drinking wine and watching the news coverage together. Look at this, Hae-jin said, scrolling through her phone. The comments are mostly supportive of you. People are calling Min-jun and Seo-yeon trash and saying you're a hero. I'm not a hero, I said. I'm just a woman who refused to be a victim. That's what makes you a hero to a lot of people, she replied. Around midnight, there was another knock. This time, it was Min-jun. I could see him on the camera, looking disheveled and desperate. Destiny, please, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Hae-jin looked at me. Want me to tell him to go away? I shook my head. No, I'll handle this. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He looked terrible, suit rumpled, tie loosened, eyes red from what might have been crying or anger or both. How could you? He said, his voice breaking. How could you destroy me like this? I'm ruined. The company suspended me. My parents won't speak to me. Everyone knows. Everyone knows the truth, I corrected. That's all I did, Minjun, I told the truth. You humiliated me. You made me look like a monster. You made yourself look like a monster when you cheated on me, lied to me, and planned to throw me away like garbage. I just made sure people knew about it. I loved you, he said, and he actually seemed to believe it. Maybe not the way you wanted, but I did care. You loved the idea of me, I interrupted. The international wife who made you look worldly and progressive, but you never loved me as a person. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. So this is it. You're just going to divorce me and destroy my entire life. I'm going to divorce you, yes. As for your life, you destroyed that yourself. I just refuse to go down quietly with you. He looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. You'll regret this. My family has lawyers, connections. We'll fight this. Fight it if you want, I said calmly. But the evidence is public now. The court of public opinion has already ruled, and the legal courts will too. Attorney Kim is very good at her job. Seo-yeon and I. He started, then stopped. What about Seo-yeon? She's blaming me. She says I seduced her, that I promised to leave you months ago and kept delaying. She's trying to save her own career by throwing me under the bus. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Honor among thieves doesn't really exist, does it? He looked broken, defeated. I'm sorry, Destiny. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry. It's worth nothing, I said honestly. Because you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. That's not real remorse. I closed the door in his face and locked it. Hae-jin was standing behind me, smiling. That was perfect. How do you feel? I thought about it. Lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for so long and finally set it down. Good, she said, because this is just the beginning. Now you get to rebuild your life on your own terms. She was right. The hardest part was over. Now came the future, whatever I wanted it to be. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. The divorce proceedings moved quickly once both parties agreed to settle. Minjun's family tried to minimize the financial damage, but attorney Kim was relentless. In the end, I received 90 million won in compensation, approximately 70,000 US dollars, plus half of our joint assets and the full value of the apartment, which Minjun would buy me out of. More satisfying than the money, however, were the other consequences that rippled outward like waves from a stone thrown into still water. Hansung Electronics concluded their investigation and terminated both Minjun and Seo-yeon for ethics violations. The company couldn't afford to keep them after the public outcry. Their reputations in the Korean corporate world were destroyed. No reputable company would hire them now. Seo-yeon tried to salvage things by giving interviews claiming she'd been manipulated by Minjun, that she was a victim too. But the text messages I'd released showed her to be an active, willing participant who'd even mocked me behind my back. Public sympathy for her was non-existent. Minjun's parents finally called me, not to apologize, but to negotiate. They wanted me to issue a public statement saying the family had been supportive, that they'd always treated me well. In exchange, they'd add another 20 million won to the settlement. I refused. I'm not rewriting history for your comfort, I told his father. You tolerated me at best. You made me feel like I was never good enough. I won't lie about that for any amount of money. You're being unreasonable, he blustered. We gave you opportunities, welcomed you into our family. You welcomed me like you'd welcome a stray dog you hoped would go away, I replied. And the moment it became convenient, you encouraged your son to divorce me. I owe you nothing. I hung up and blocked their numbers. But the most unexpected consequence came from a different direction entirely. 3 days after the shareholders' meeting, I received an email from a woman named Grace Adami. She was Nigerian, like me, and had been living in Korea for 7 years, married to a Korean man. "Your story gave me courage," she wrote. "I've been in a similar situation. My husband has been cheating with his secretary for 2 years. I knew but was too afraid to do anything. Afraid of being alone in a foreign country, afraid of losing my visa, afraid of what people would say. But watching you stand up for yourself made me realize I deserve better. I've contacted a lawyer. Thank you for showing me it's possible to fight back." Over the next week, I received dozens of similar messages. Women, both foreign and Korean, thanking me for speaking out. Some were dealing with infidelity, others with controlling families or abusive situations. My story had resonated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Sarah Chen reached out again. "Would you be interested in doing a follow-up piece? Maybe about the broader experiences of foreign spouses in Korea? I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here." I agreed. The interview aired 2 weeks later, and this time it wasn't just about my divorce. It was about the challenges foreign spouses faced, the cultural adjustments, the isolation, the pressure to assimilate while never quite being accepted. I spoke about the beautiful aspects of Korean culture I'd grown to love, but also the harsh realities that nobody talked about. The response was overwhelming. I was invited to speak at expat community events. A women's rights organization in Seoul asked me to join their advisory board. Book publishers reached out, asking if I'd be interested in writing a memoir. My life was transforming, in ways I never expected. Meanwhile, Minjun's life continued its downward spiral. He moved back in with his parents, a humiliating step backward for a man in his 30s who'd been on track for executive leadership. He couldn't find work in his field. His friends distanced themselves from him. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd become depressed, barely leaving the house. His mother blamed me for destroying her son, but his father had apparently admitted, privately, never publicly, that Minjun had brought this on himself. Si-Hyeon fared somewhat better. She left Korea entirely, taking a position with a smaller company in Singapore. She'd essentially fled the country to escape her ruined reputation. I felt no sympathy for her. 1 month after the divorce was finalized, I made a decision. I was leaving Korea. Not because I was running away, but because I was ready to move forward. I'd rebuilt my professional network and had 3 job offers, one in Dubai, one in Singapore, and one back home in Lagos. I chose Lagos. My family threw me a welcome home party when I arrived. My mother hugged me for what felt like hours, crying and telling me how proud she was of how I'd handled everything. "You could have been broken by this," she said. "Instead, you broke them." Amara, my best friend, took me out that first week back. We sat at our favorite spot in Victoria Island, drinking wine and watching the sunset over the Atlantic. "So what now?" she asked. "You're free, you're financially stable, you've got job offers. What does Destiny Okonkwo do next?" I thought about it. I think I heal. I think I rediscover who I am outside of being someone's wife, and then I build something new, something that's entirely mine. "Sounds perfect," Amara said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed. But life had one more surprise for me. 3 months after returning to Nigeria, I was at a business conference in Abuja when someone approached me. He was Nigerian, tall, handsome, with an easy smile and kind eyes. "Excuse me, are you Destiny Okonkwo?" he asked. I tensed immediately. By now, my story had gone international. I never knew if someone recognizing me was going to be positive or negative. I said cautiously. "I'm Chidi Okafor," he introduced himself. "I saw your interview about foreign spouses' experiences. It was incredibly brave. Actually, I wanted to tell you, I went through something similar. I was married to a British woman living in London. She was having an affair with her business partner. When I found out and divorced her, everyone told me I was overreacting, that I should have just accepted it and moved on. Seeing you stand up for yourself, fight back, hold people accountable, it validated a lot of what I felt." We talked for hours about betrayal, recovery, cultural challenges, rebuilding lives. By the end of the conference, we'd exchanged numbers and agreed to stay in touch. 6 months later, we were dating. A year after that, he proposed. And this time, when someone asked me to marry them, I knew beyond any doubt that it was real, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine love. Meanwhile, back in Korea, the consequences continued to unfold. Min-jun eventually found work at a much smaller company, in a junior position far below his previous level. His career never recovered. He was still living with his parents at last report, his grand ambitions reduced to a cautionary tale about hubris and betrayal. Seo-yeon's position in Singapore didn't last long. Her past caught up with her when a Korean colleague at the new company recognized her name and shared the story. She was let go during her probationary period. Last I heard, she'd moved to Vietnam, still trying to outrun her reputation. Min-jun's parents finally issued a public apology, not to me directly, but a general statement about having failed to instill proper values in their son. It was too little, too late, but at least it was something. And Hai-jin, Min-jun's ex-girlfriend who'd helped me, became one of my closest friends. We still video chat regularly, and she was one of the first people I told when Chitty proposed. "I'm so happy for you," she said, tears in her eyes. "You deserve this, you deserve everything good." The wedding was beautiful, a blend of Nigerian and, at Chitty's suggestion, since his mother was Korean, subtle Korean elements. It was my choice, my terms, my future. Not an obligation or a performance, but a genuine celebration of love and partnership. During the reception, I stood up to give a speech. I thanked everyone for coming, thanked my family for supporting me through the darkest period of my life, thanked Chitty for showing me what real love looked like. And then I said something I'd been thinking about for months. A year and a half ago, I overheard a conversation that shattered my world. My then-husband had forgotten to end a phone call, and I heard him tell his mistress that he'd never loved me, that I'd just been convenient. In that moment, I had a choice. I could accept it quietly, let them win, disappear from their lives without causing trouble, or I could fight back. I chose to fight, and some people criticized me for that. They said I was vindictive, that I aired private matters publicly, that I ruined lives over a mistake. But here's what I learned. Silence protects abusers. Silence protects liars. Silence protects people who hurt us and expect us to suffer alone. I refused to be silent. I refused to protect people who hurt me. And yes, there were consequences for them. But those consequences weren't my doing. They were the natural result of their own actions finally being exposed. So to anyone here who's ever been betrayed, lied to, taken for granted, don't be silent. Don't protect people who hurt you. Stand up for yourself. Fight back. And know that the temporary discomfort of confrontation is worth the permanent freedom of living in truth. The room erupted in applause. Later, several guests approached me privately, sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery, thanking me for speaking out. That night, lying next to Chitty, I reflected on everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fight, the victory, and finally, this new chapter. Min-jun had tried to erase me from his life, to dispose of me like I was nothing. Instead, I'd erased him from my future and built something better than anything we'd had. Karma, I'd learned, wasn't just about bad things happening to bad people. It was about good things finally coming to those who refused to accept less than they deserved. My phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "I saw your wedding photos online. Congratulations, you look happy. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you can forgive me someday. Min-jun." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some people didn't deserve closure. Some apologies came too late to matter. I turned off my phone and curled up next to my husband, my real husband, who loved me truly and completely, and fell asleep with a smile on my face. Destiny Okonkwo had been through fire, but she hadn't been consumed by it. She'd emerged stronger, fiercer, and finally, genuinely happy. And that was the best revenge of all.